Good morning. Today's Bible reading comes from Genesis 44 through 47. And hopefully I won't have a cat that's intertwining in between the legs of the gamma. For some reason he gets a little crazy sometimes. And got to go through legs and legs of the gamma. All right. Joseph ordered his house steward, fill the men's bags with food, all they can carry, and replace each one's money at the top of the bag. Then put my chalice, my silver chalice, in the top of the bag of the youngest, along with the money for his food. He did as Joseph ordered. At break of day, the men were sent off with their donkeys. They were barely out of the city when Joseph said to his house steward, "Run after them. When you catch up with them, say, 'Why did you pay me back evil for good? Why did you? This is the chalice my master drinks from. He also uses it for divination. This is outrageous.'" He caught up with them and repeated all this word for word. They said, "What is my master talking about? We would never do anything like that. Why, the money we found in our bags earlier, we brought back all the way from Canaan. Do you think we'd turn around and steal it back from your master? That chalice is found on any of us. He'll die, and the rest of us will be your master's slaves." Steward said, "Very well then. But we won't have to go that far. Whoever is found with the chalice will be my slave. The rest of you can go free." Bangs are driving me nuts today. They outdid each other in putting their bags on the ground and opening them for inspection. Stewards searched their bags, going from the oldest to the youngest. The chalice showed up in Benjamin's bag. They ripped their clothes in despair, loaded up their donkeys, and went back to the city. Joseph was still at home when Judah and his brothers got back. They threw themselves down on the ground in front of him. Joseph accused them. "How can you have done this? You have to know that a man in my position would have discovered this." Judah, spokesman for the brothers, say, "What can we say, Master? What is there to say? How can we prove our innocence? God is behind this, exposing how bad we are. We stand guilty before you and ready to be your slaves. We're all in this together. The rest of us as guilty as the one with the chalice." "I'd never do that to you," said Joseph. "Only the one involved with the chalice will be my slave. The rest of you are free to go back to your father." Judah came forward. He said, "Please, Master, can I just say one thing to you? Don't get angry. Don't think I'm presumptuous. You're the same as Pharaoh as far as I'm concerned. You, Master, asked us, 'Do you have a father and a brother?' And we answered honestly. We have a father who is old and a younger brother who was born to him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left from that mother. And father loves him more than anything. Then you told us, 'Bring him down here so I can see him.' We told you, 'Master, that was impossible. The boy can't leave his father. If he leaves, his father will die.' And then you said, 'If your youngest brother doesn't come with you, you won't be allowed to see me.' When we returned to our father, we told him everything you said to us. So our father said, 'Go back and buy some more food.' We told him flatly, 'We can't. The only way we can go back is if our younger brother is with us. We aren't allowed to even see the man if our youngest brother doesn't come with us. Your servant, my father, told us. You know very well that my wife gave me 2 sons. One turned up missing. I concluded that he had been ripped to pieces. I've never seen him since. If you now go and take this one and something bad happens to him, you'll put my old gray grieving head in the grave for sure. And now can't you see that if I show up before your servant, my father without the boy, this son with whom his whole life is so bound up, the moment he realizes the boy is gone, he'll die on the spot. He'll die of grief, and we, your servants, who are standing here before you, will have killed him. And that's not all. I got my father to release the boy to show him to you by promising. If I don't bring him back, I'll stand condemned before you, Father, all my life. So let me stay here as your slave, not this boy. Let the boy go back with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? Oh, don't make me go back and watch my father die in grief. Joseph couldn't hold himself in any longer. Keeping up a front before all his attendants, he cried out, "Leave, clear, clear out, everyone leave." So there was no one with Joseph when he identified himself to his brothers. But his sobbing was so violent that the Egyptians couldn't help but hear him. The news was soon reported to Pharaoh's palace. Joseph spoke to his brothers. "I am Joseph. Is my father really still alive?" But his brothers couldn't say a word. They were speechless. They couldn't believe what they were hearing and seeing. "Come closer to me," Joseph said to his brothers. They came closer. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But don't feel badly. Don't blame yourselves for selling me. God was behind it. God sent me here ahead of you to save lives. There has been a famine in the land now for 2 years. The famine will continue for 5 more years, neither plowing nor harvesting. God sent me on ahead to pave the way and make sure there was a remnant in the land to save your lives in an amazing act of deliverance. So you see, it wasn't you who sent me here, but God. He set me in a place as a father to Pharaoh, put me in charge of his personal affairs, and made me ruler of all Egypt. Hurry back to my father, tell him, your son Joseph says, I'm master of all Egypt. Come as fast as you can and join me here. I'll give you a place to live in Goshen, where you'll be close to me, you, your children, your grandchildren, your flocks, your herds, and anything else you can think of. I'll take care of you there completely. There are still 5 more years of famine ahead. I'll make sure all your needs are taken care of, you and everyone connected with you. You won't want for a thing. Look at me. You can see for yourselves, and my brother Benjamin can see for himself that it's me, my own mouth, telling you all this. Tell my father all about the high position I hold in Egypt. Tell him everything you've seen here, but don't take all day. Hurry up and get my father down here." Then Joseph threw himself on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. He then kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Only then were his brothers able to talk with him. The story was reported in Pharaoh's palace. Joseph's brothers have come. It was good news to Pharaoh and all who worked with him. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, this is the plan. Load up your pack animals, go to Canaan. Get your father and your families and bring them back here. I'll settle you on the best land of Egypt. You'll live off the fat of the land. Also tell them this, here's what I want you to do. Take wagons from Egypt to carry your little ones and your wives and load up your father and come back. Don't worry about having to leave things behind. The best in all of Egypt will be yours." And they did just that, sons of Israel. Joseph gave them the wagons that Pharaoh had promised and food for the trip. He outfitted all the brothers in brand new clothes, but he gave Benjamin 300 pieces of silver and several suits of clothes. He sent his father these gifts: 10 donkeys loaded with Egypt's best products, and another 10 donkeys loaded with grain and bread, provisions for his father's journey back. Then he sent his brothers off. As they left, he told them, "Take it easy on the journey. Try to get along with each other." They left Egypt and went back to their father Jacob in Canaan. When they told him, "Joseph is still alive and he's the ruler over the whole land of Egypt. He went numb. He couldn't believe his ears. But the more they talked, telling him everything that Joseph had told them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him back, the blood started to flow again. Their father Jacob's spirit revived. Israel said, "I've heard enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I've got to go and see him before I die." So Israel set out on the journey with everything he owned. He arrived at Beersheba and worshipped, offering sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in a vision that night. "Jacob, Jacob." "Yes," he said, "I'm listening." God said, "I am the God of your father. Don't be afraid of going down to Egypt. I'm going to make you a great nation there. I'll go with you down to Egypt. I'll also bring you back here. And when you die, Joseph will be with you with his own hand. He'll close your eyes." Then Jacob left Beersheba. Israel's sons loaded their father and their little ones and their wives on the wagons Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They arrived in Egypt with the livestock and the wealth they had accumulated in Canaan. Jacob brought everyone in his family with him, sons and grandsons, daughters and granddaughters, everyone. These are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his descendants, who went to Egypt. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. Reuben's sons, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Simeon's sons, Jamul, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. Levi's sons, Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Judah's sons, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. And Onan had already died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. Issachar's sons, Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. Zebulun's sons, Sered, Elon, and Jahleel. These are the sons that Leah bore to Jacob in Padan Aram. There were also his daughter Dinah. Altogether, sons and daughters, they numbered 33. Gad's sons, Zephon, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodai, Areli. Asher's sons, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, and Beriah. Also their sisters, Sarah, and Beriah's sons, Eber and Malkiel. These are the children that Zilpah, the maid that Laban gave to his daughter Leah, bore to Jacob, 16 of them. The sons of Jacob's wives, Rachel, were Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph was the father of 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, from his marriage to Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. They were born to him in Egypt. Benjamin's sons were Bela, Becher, Ashabel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, and Ard. These are the children born to Jacob through Israel, 14. Dan's son, Hushim. Naphtali's sons, Jazeel, Guni, Jizer, and Shelam. These are the children born to Jacob through Bilhah, the maid Laban had given to his daughter Rachel, 7. Summing up all those who went down to Egypt with Jacob, his own children, not counting his sons' wives, numbered 66, counting in the 2 sons born to Joseph in Egypt. The members of Jacob's family who ended up in Egypt numbered 70. Jacob sent Judah on ahead to get directions to Goshen from Joseph. When they got to Goshen, Joseph gave orders for his chariot and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. The moment Joseph saw him, he threw himself on his neck and wept. He wept a long time. Israel said to Joseph, "I'm ready to die. I've looked into your face. You are indeed alive." Joseph then spoke to his brothers and his father's family. "I'll go and tell Pharaoh, my brothers and my father's family, all of whom who lived in Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds. They've always made their living by raising livestock, and they've brought their flocks and herds with them, along with everything else they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks what kind of work you do, tell him, your servants have always kept livestock for as long as we can remember. We and our parents also. That way he'll let you stay apart in the area of Goshen, for Egyptians look down on anyone who is a shepherd. Joseph went to Pharaoh and told him, my father and brothers, with their flocks and herds and everything they own, have come from Canaan. Right now they are in Goshen. He had taken 5 of his brothers with him and introduced them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked them, what kind of work do you do? Your servants are shepherds, the same as our fathers were. We have come to this country to find a new place to live. There is no pasture for our flocks in Canaan. The famine has been very bad there. Please, would you let your servants settle in the region of Goshen? Pharaoh looked at Joseph. So your father and brothers have arrived. A reunion. Egypt welcomes them. Settle your father and brothers on the choicest land. Yes, give them Goshen. And if you know any among them that are especially good at their work, put them in charge of my own livestock. Next, Joseph brought his father Jacob in and introduced him to Pharaoh. Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked Jacob, how old are you? Jacob answered Pharaoh, the years of my sojourning are 130, a short and hard life, and not nearly as long as my ancestors were given. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and left. Jacob settled his father and brothers in Egypt, made them proud owners of choice land. It was the region of Ramses, that is, Goshen, just as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph took good care of them, his father and brothers and all his father's family, right down to the smallest baby. He made sure they had plenty of everything. Time eventually came when there was no food anywhere. The famine was very bad. Egypt and Canaan alike were devastated by the famine. Joseph collected all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan to pay for the distribution of food. He banked the money in Pharaoh's palace. When the money from Egypt and Canaan had run out, the Egyptians came to Joseph. Food, give us food. Are you going to watch us die right in front of you? The money is all gone. Joseph said, bring your livestock. I'll trade you food for livestock since your money's run out. So they brought Joseph their livestock. He traded them food for their horses, sheep, cattle, and donkeys. He got them through that year in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was over, battery died. When that year was over, the next year rolled around and they were back saying, Master, it's no secret to you that we're broke. Our money's gone and we've traded you all our livestock. We've nothing left to barter with but our bodies and our farms. What use are our bodies and our land if we stand here and starve to death right in front of you? Trade us food for our bodies and our land. We'll be slaves to Pharaoh and give up our land. All we ask is seed for survival, just enough to live on and keep the farms alive. So Joseph bought up all the farms in Egypt for Pharaoh. Every Egyptian sold his land. The famine was that bad. That's how Pharaoh ended up owning all the land, and the people ended up being slaves. Joseph reduced the people to slavery from one end of Egypt to the other. Joseph made an exception for the priest. He didn't buy their land because they received a fixed salary from Pharaoh and were able to live off of that salary, so they didn't need to sell their land. Joseph then announced to the people, here's how things stand. I've bought you and your land for Pharaoh. In exchange, I'm giving you seed so you can plant the ground. When the crops are harvested, you must give a fifth to Pharaoh and keep 4/5 for yourselves, for seed for yourselves and your families. You're going to be able to feed your children. They said, you've saved our lives. Master, we're grateful and glad to be slaves to Pharaoh. Joseph decreed a land law in Egypt. that is still in effect. A fifth goes to Pharaoh. Only the priest lands were not owned by Pharaoh. And so Israel settled down in Egypt in the region of Goshen. They acquired property and flourished. They became a large company of people. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years. In all, he lived 147 years. When the time came for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said, "Do me this favor. Put your hand under my thigh, a sign that you're loyal and true to me to the end. Don't bury me in Egypt. When I lie down with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt and bear me alongside them." "I will," he said. "I'll do what you've asked." Israel said, "Promise me." Joseph promised. Israel bowed his head in submission and gratitude from his bed. And that is it for today's Bible reading. As always, get in touch with God today, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.